internal collections means they have a department that handles the collections, collecting money. They're gonna have they have a department that's going to, they're gonna harass you, they're gonna call you, they're gonna email you, they're going to send you postal mail. They are going to continually spam you until they collect some or all of their money. If they have an internal department, it will look no different on your credit report. So we're talking about collections as it relates to your credit report. Now, sometimes collections don't go on the credit report. The creditor may still try to collect, but we're talking about the ones that show up on the credit report. So if you see the creditor on the credit report in collections, in the collection section of your credit report, then it is an internal credit collections department. If you see a different company, then it is an external credit collections company. And that means the creditor sold the debt to an outside collections agency. Now, let me tell you what's special about these collections agencies, right? Let me tell you what's special about these collections agencies. So first and foremost, let's talk about, next session, we're gonna talk about charge-offs, right? But I'm gonna talk to you today a little bit about charge-offs, and we'll reintroduce that later. So Abby, here's what happens, right? The company says, I'm not gonna name a company, because again, I don't get paid by these companies, right? But the company says, all right, you owe $658. I'm going to sell this debt to collections agency, but before they sell the debt, they will charge it off. Charge off means that the company, the IRS tells creditors that they can charge off up to 75% of debt, right? Which means that they get to write off on their taxes 75%. So let's do a round number. Let's say $1,000, right? Let's say you owe $1,000. They can write off up to 75% of that. So $750, they don't have to collect from you. But they're going to sell that $1,000 to a collections agent, an external collections agency. So now, and they don't have to sell it for $1,000 because they only have to recoup $250. It's only a $250 loss to them, right? Because the IRS says they're only responsible for the $250, not the $1,000. Right? So they will sell your $1,000 debt to an external collections agency for $300. Right? Knowing that, armed with that information, that's going to empower you, Sean, because you know that you owe $1,000, but they don't have to collect $1,000. They only have to collect, the collections agency really only has to collect $300. Anything above that is gravy for them, but they at least have to break even. All right, so they sell the debt. When they sell the debt, what's important to you is on your credit report, you should see two things. You should see the original creditor, and the original creditor should have a $0 amount being reported on your credit report because they've sold that debt. That's important. What did I just say? The original creditor on our credit report has a $0 amount on the creditor because they sold the debt to someone. That's right. Because if they sold it to a third party, the third party is going to be reporting that you owe that $1,000. There's two people cannot collect the same amount on one day. I'm gonna say that differently. If the creditor is reporting, let's say creditor A is reporting that you owe $1,000, and the collections agency that they sold that debt to is also reporting that you owe $1,000, then you are armed with some artillery to get that removed, because two companies cannot collect the same debt, right? So you want to look at your credit reports. If you have collections, you want to see that the original creditor is reporting a $0 amount and the collections agency is reporting the whatever amount they're reporting, right? Now, collections, and I'm going to talk about how to settle those collections in just a minute. Collections can stay on your credit report for 7 years, but here's the thing about collections. What's your name? Say it again. Rachel. Rachel, am I saying it right, Rachel? All right, Rachel. So here's the deal, Rachel. Because names are important to me, that's why I asked you. So here's the deal. They can stay on your credit report for 7 years, but collections agencies play this game. They can sell your debt to another collections agency within that 7 years, and the 7 years starts over with the new collections agency. That's why you say, how in the world do I have to keep paying? It's 21 years later and I'm still paying for Credit A's debt on my credit report. That's how they play the game. But you can fix that because there is a thing called the date of last activity. Write that down. This is not a write it down. Or remember, it's not your life. So there's a thing called the date of last activity. The original creditor is going to have, by the way, some stuff I don't put up here because I want to engage. So the date of last activity is the last date that you made a payment on that debt. You have 7 years from that date. They have 7 years from that date to collect their money. They can settle as much as they want, but you are armed with that information. You know that if the date of last activity was 7 years ago, you're not responsible for that collection. They'll still try to collect it, but you're not responsible. Now, this next thing I want to point out here is highlighted because there has been a new law put in place as of July of 2022, July 1 of 2022. That law says medical collections less than $500, that's very important, less than $500 and after July 1st can no longer go on the credit reports, right? But they have to satisfy both of those criteria, not one or the other, both. Medical collections that are less than 500 and reported after July 1st cannot go on the credit report. So if you go to the dentist, and all dentists are included, if you go to the dentist and you get a $474 bill, and you don't pay that $474 bill, they cannot put that collections on your credit report. That doesn't mean they're not going to come after you. That doesn't mean they're not going to come after you. They're going to continue to come after you, but they just can't put it on the credit report. If it's $501 though, they can. So you guys can imagine what the medical community is going to do, right? All of your debts are going to be 501 or more, right? They're going to tack on x-rays or they're going to raise the prices of the medicine or whatever. So, but this is a rule that was passed July last year. The other rule that was passed 3 years ago was judgments can no longer go on a credit report. Somebody tell me what a judgment is as it pertains to credit. Don't make me call names. I know all of your names now. Rachel, you gave me a name that was your fault. Don't make me call your name. What is a judgment as it relates to your credit report?
It's like a lien.
Okay, what's a lien? You're right, it's just like a lien. What's a lien?
It's a debt that's going to be tied or fixed to you or to a property till it's paid off. You're not going to really be able to purchase anything of any major significance after judgment.
Okay, so a judgment means you're about to say something which none of us here.
I would say, is it a word?
A judgment just means that there was some form of law enforcement on that debt. That's the only difference between judgments and any other collection. That means there was some law enforcement on that debt. That means they sent it to civil court and or criminal court, but typically civil court. If they sent a debt to a civil court, that means it's a judgment. But here's the good news. It law was passed 2.5 years ago that judgments are not allowed to appear on the credit reports. Now, how many credit bureaus are there? You don't have to chop it up. I'm not gonna call it. I promise. I promise. I'm not gonna call it. How many? Say it again.
3.
I keep setting you up. I know it hurts.
Rashawn.
So,
Seven.
Rashawn, how many credit bureaus are there?
8.
All right. So there are 8, there are 3 majors, so you're right. You're not wrong. You're right. You're not wrong. You're just not as right as Rashawn. You're right. It's not as right as you can't be. So there are 3 majors, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and then there are 4 minors. LexisNexis, SageStream, that's the new company, those 2 merged. ARS, Innovis, and CoreLogic. So judgments will not go on the 3 major credit bureau reports. Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. They will go on the minors. So if you get denied credit because there's a judgment, you say, I don't have judgments are not allowed to go on my credit report. That's because particularly in mortgage, because that's what we're talking about, right? Credit and real estate today, that's what this is all about, we're merging the two, right? So you're talking about mortgages. Mortgage lenders will always pull the secondary bureaus as well, and they will see those judgments, so make sure you're taking care of it. All right, let's move to the next thing. All right, so let's say you have collections. Let's talk about how to fix a collection. You have a collection, the first thing that we suggest you do is to write a letter to the collections agency, asking them to validate the collections. Now, again, that is only if it is within that 7-year window, right? But let's say you have a situation where the creditor is reporting and the collections agency is reporting. You're gonna write a letter. Now, they're gonna call you, right? Because they will tell you that calls are being recorded for training, quality and training purposes, but you cannot subpoena those records. They can, but you cannot. So, or not you cannot, you can, but they don't, the law protects them, they don't have to give you those records. They can bring those records to court. So if you guys have a court dispute, you decide to sue them, they can bring those records to court and say, she's admitting that she owes this debt, and you can hear it in this recording. But you can't call them and hear them say, you are not responsible for this debt. You can't subpoena. They're not required to do that. So write a letter. Letter is your proof. One, date, but two, that you said what you said. So write a letter asking the collections agency to verify that you owe them the debt. And they need to send you the original contract from the original credit, right? Because you need to see the date of last activity. They also need to show you documentation that they transferred the debt from the original to the collection rates. If they don't send that, then you are not responsible for that debt. And you can write the credit, the credit bureau, remade it. Send that letter certified mail. And this is a big deal for you guys. This is a big deal. There is a component of the Fair Credit Reporting Act called the 30-day rule. That rule says a creditor has 30 days to respond to your letter, your dispute or inquiry, and if they do not respond within 30 days, then the derogatory that you're writing about has to be removed by law, has to be removed from the credit. Now, it may take you some time to get it removed from the credit because you have to prove that they did not respond. But if they don't respond with a letter within 30 days, then the law says you can get that removed. And if the credit bureaus don't remove it, you can go to the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. CFPB. All right. This organization is who created that Fair Credit Reporting Act. And this agency works for you, the consumer. If you have any issues with any of the 8, 7 now credit bureaus, this company, this organization is in place to help you remove. So now, there are two ways to deal with collections. You can trade time for money or money for time. Trading time for money means you're going to spend the time writing these letters, sending them out, tracking that they didn't respond in 30 days, and getting things removed. But that is a process, and that could take you 3, 4, 5 months. Or you can trade money for time. You can settle the debt. I can't see down there, but that's fine. Don't worry, I'll tell you what it says. You can settle the debt. That means I'm going to trade money. I'm going to admit, you are going to openly admit that you owe this debt. But if you openly admit you owe this debt, there are several ways to get rid of the debt. The first one is to settle in full. That means you're going to pay the full $1,000. Now, I would never pay the full $1,000, Abby, without them removing that debt from the credit reports. They have to agree to me to remove the debt from the credit report, which means that we're really moving in from settling full to what we call pay for delete. And you're going to write a letter saying, I am willing to pay this debt if you're willing to remove the entry from our credit reports. That letter comes back, they say they agree to the amount, then it should be removed from the credit reports, but you have that response at your disposal. You can settle, pay it, and have it be called what's paid in full, which means you are paying less than the amount that you owe. So you're paying $500, and we try to settle debts for 50% or less. So you're saying you're settling for less than what you owe, but it's going to show up as on the credit report as settled or paid in full. Paying in full is going to be better for you than settling. Paying for delete is going to be the best, but settling and showing it and having it show up as paid in full on your credit report or settled in full is, I would say, if I were rating this would be an A, this would be a B. Settle for less means, yes.
Is there a time for them?
No, unfortunately, you cannot hold them to a time frame. Most of them will tell you they'll do it in the next cycle. So it should show up between 30 and 45 days. But if it's not gonna show, yeah. If it does not show up within 45 days, then you just send the evidence that you settled to the credit bureaus and they'll remove it the next cycle.
So the letter that they send back says they're going to.
Correct. That's correct. You need that letter. And if you guys call, don't call, but if you call, don't call, but if you call, make sure you get them to email you or mail you a letter that you are settling and that they agree to remove it from credit, or they agree to whatever you choose to put on the credit. Because it's that letter that you can send to the credit bureaus after 45. You shouldn't wait more than 45 days. If it doesn't show up in 45 days, that's when you should send the letter to the credit bureaus with the evidence that you have sent. Okay, settle paid in full, that's a C. And then settle for less, that's a D. But it's still something. It's better than nothing. So settle for less just means you're agreeing that I'm paying $500 or $400, and what they're going to put on the credit report is that you settled this debt for less. Now, when you go to get a mortgage, and again, we're talking credit and real estate, so when you go to get a mortgage, those ratings that I just told you about are going to come up. Again, A and A, B, C, or no, what did I say? C and D. So if you have a debt, if you have a collections that's reporting $0 balance but settled for less, you are going to, it is going to be more detrimental than these other two, because the mortgage lender is going to say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the mortgage lender is going to look at you as a much more risky proposition. They're going to say, you knew, you are recognizing that you owed $1,000, but you chose not to pay the $1,000 for whatever reason, which means you owe us $100,000. You may choose not to pay us $400,000. You are much riskier proposition. So if you have the money, pay the money, and if you have the money, pay the money, and ask them to do a pay for delete. All right. Any questions about that? All right, do me a favor. Let me run. I'm going to give you guys an example of the letter that you guys should send to the creditor. Siri. You kidding me right now? Siri does that to me. It doesn't. It must be my voice. Must have a common voice. Addie, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor and scroll down through this. So obviously, you're going to put your name, the creditor's name. This is important. This date, current date, that's important because this is the date that 30 days starts. So Cora, when you write this letter to the credit bureaus, to the creditor, that date isn't, don't leave this off. Because once you put that date on there, let's say that date is June 1st, you need them to respond. They need to respond by July 1st. If they don't respond by July 1st, then you can write the credit bureaus and get that derogatory, that collections removed. And you won't owe the 1,000 or the 500 or the 400, right? Certified mail number means how many times you're sending the certified mail. Send all of these certified mail. So that number that you're gonna put there, the first letter you send is gonna be 1. If you send the second letter, it's gonna be 2. Blah, 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 blah. All right, the account number, you wanna pull your account numbers from your credit report. Put that here. It's dated the same date and the account number. To whom it may concern. Now, this is a setup, you're trying to get not setup, I'm sorry. This is you trying to validate the debt. This is not a refusal to pay, but a notice that disputing your claim and I'm requesting validation made pursuant to the debt practice, debt collective practice. Scroll down a little bit for me, please. All right, so what you're gonna include is, go up just a little bit. What you're gonna include up a little bit more. The other way, the other way. All right, so you're requesting verification, right? And you're not requesting that you're verifying you have my mailing address, because that's the trick that they will play. You send this letter, they will send you back a letter saying, yes, we have verified that you live at this address. No, I'm not looking for you validating my address. I'm looking for you validating the debt. Competent and valid evidence that they have some contractual obligation to collect that debt, or you have a contractual obligation to pay, right? This just talks about they've been sending you something. Your failure to satisfy this request within the requirements stated in the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act will be construed as your absolute waiver and against all claims against you. That's an important line to put in there. This is where you're saying they have 30 days. You don't put that they have 30 days in. Notice it doesn't state that they have 30 days. It just states that your failure to satisfy this request within the requirements stated. Why don't you think we have the 30 days there? Right. Because if they don't know, you're going to use that to your advantage. You're going to use that to your advantage, right? I'm not putting 30 days. You don't know that there's a 30-day rule. That's not on me. That's on you. Okay, scroll up a little bit for me, please. Or down in case. Okay, this is very important. You see this is highlighted? Do not sign that letter. Now, most legal documents you need to sign. Do not, this is a legal document, but do not sign this letter because they're going to compare your signature. If you sign it, they're going to compare your signatures that you have. And not having the signature is one of the tactics that you can use to get this debt removed. So do not sign it. Leave it as it is. All right, scroll down. Put your name, don't sign. This is the second part of this collections letter. Now, a lot of people are doing, so Rashana, what's causing me issues is that a lot of people are on the internet talking about how to write letters, right? And they're saying just write these things. So they'll tell you the stuff that's above, but they don't tell you this. This section is important because this is the creditor closure statement. So you're saying, hey, I'm going to make it possible for you to respond to me by giving you a document. All you have to do is fill it out. But this document is written so that it works on your behalf, because they have to admit now that this is their address. So they have to give you the correct address. They need to give you the names. They need to give you the full account numbers. And you are saying, are there insurance claims about this? Has the purported balance of this account being used in any tax deduction? See this right here? Has the purported balance of this account been used in any tax deductions? If the answer is yes, so remember I told you guys, the IRS says that you can write down 75% of the debt. So this right now is saying, they have to answer yes or no. If they answer no, but you can prove it, then that's gone. If they answer yes, then they're claiming that the IRS wrote down 75%, which means you're not responsible for the $1,000. You're only responsible for the 250 or the 25%. Okay? This is the other thing. Please list the exact products and or services sold by the collector. What do you guys do? We are a debt collection agency. And then upon failure or refusal of collector to validate this collection action, collector agrees to waive all claims. That line in there gets you out of most collections. You send that and 25%, typically this works about 25 to 50%. 25% of your collections will be wiped off the credit without you having to pay a dime. And that's trading time for money.
So you said that
Collection days. Collection days. This is the first letter. This is the letter. This is one whole letter.
Okay, got it.
Let's go, scroll back up. Yeah, this is the second page of that one whole letter. So you are saying to them in this part, this is a 2-page letter. Saying to them in this part, and if you signed in and left your email, I'll send you a copy of this. For free. Is that nice? I'm not. All people gave me email. So this is a 2-page letter, and this letter lets them know that you know the law. The second part makes them responsible for the law. Typically, they are not going to respond to this letter. They're not going to send that disclosure back. They're going to do is just, they're going to hit PDF and they're going to have that removed because they don't want it. So now, if it's $1,000 or more, they may go through it, but anything less than $1,000, typically they just say, we don't want to do this. This person knows what they're doing. Let's just stop talking. Any other questions, concerns, issues, commentary? Anybody want to say? No? All right. Well, I thank you for your time, and now we get to see. Why did y'all tell me this before? Yes. Oh. If you guys will welcome the star of this show,
Oh, my goodness, stop it.
Abby Bridgeford. This is.
So there's a hard, I'm follow, I'm fair. Here. I'm fair to say that. But thank you very much for listening.
You
For the counseling, because I learned a lot today. It shows that even if you're in this industry, there's different levels of information that, you know, is always something. So even though, I think I think about the legends today. Give us a call, email us, so we can talk to you about your specific, everyone's situation. So today our subject is going to be one, then perhaps the question you might ask yourself. Should I buy real estate? Or should I rent? Now, it's interesting, I find that most of us, and I want to just get an idea. First home, buy your first home or your most. Rent. Rent seems to be the thing, even home, want to go behind your own security deposit. First home, and you move out. Actually, their first home. They get a home, they bought a house. So what we're going to talk about today is kind of getting ideas to which one should we do? Now, what I will say, in our next slide, is we have verses. Verses meaning there are some situations where you need to rent. There are some situations that perhaps most there are. But what we're going to discuss today is what does it mean, you know, to buy or rent? With those in our audience, might not know the difference between We're gonna talk about some advantages and disadvantages of both. And then we're also gonna give some reasons, perhaps you might not consider that there are some reasons you should be buying. And then there may be some reasons you should be renting. So we're gonna discuss it, okay? Now, everyone's situation is different in here, so I'm not gonna tell you that you should buy, and I'm not gonna tell you you should rent. So I'll make that decision on my own, okay? So let's look at for first, what does it mean? All right, so when you think about buying, generally speaking, you have money, you have resources that you have, those resources available. And in exchange for those resources, let's say consideration, like, you expect to get something. And walk away with that, and you now own it, right? Well, in real estate, ownership, buying is like a bundle of rights. Okay, it's like a bundle of sticks. It comes with rights. You can sell it, you can rent it, sublet it, you can own it. These are all things you can do with real estate. We want you to own it. Those bundle of rights. Well, leasing is the opposite. Leasing is a temporary situation. No permanency in most cases. When we say that, we never have the rights. We never have the right, unless it's granted to you by whoever it is. So what we want, all we want to think about in general is, do I want to own something? Do I want to have a temporary arrangement? Do I want something permanent? Do I want something fleeting? Now, again, doesn't mean that renting is finished. Now, I don't want to give our audience those or virtual or in-person impression that renting is a bad thing. It's not. We want to discuss it. So first, let's look at our next slide. We're going to talk about the pros. All right, so the pros of renting. Well, my son just and never been there for Jersey ever before. Nice location. And recommendation, let's rent. Why? Don't know anything about the neighborhood, trying to figure out where you want to be, what you want to do. Does this feel like me? This is like home. That might be an advantage of rent. Try out and see if this is where you want to be. And then when you realize, oh, no, I don't want to live here. I don't like the climate here. Don't like the pollution here. Don't like the taxes here. Whatever it might be. So you might choose to rent. That's it, right? Now, uncertainty in your career. You're in school. You're thinking, I might want to be a doctor. Then you might say, you know what? I don't want to be a surgeon. You know what? I think I want to be like, so as you constantly think about what it is you want to do with your life, you may choose to rent. Because you're not exactly sure what you want to do financially with your life. So you might say, well, you know what? I'm going to Africa and help those people because they need help in the medical field. So you might not buy a house because your intentions is to go somewhere else. Okay, so the career can have a very big bearing as to whether or not you will want to. Uncertainty and uncomfort. You're a person now, let's say middle age, we'll let you all decide what you consider middle age. I'm not going to say it though, that's a setup. But you might be thinking, you know what? I'm not going to have that full-time income. I'm going to retire. And I think I might not want to buy a house. Perhaps I just want a fixed income. You ever heard that expression? Or a fixed income. So you might feel that renting is more advantage to you. So there is some advantage to renting because when you're fixed income, structure your expenditures a lot better than you can do buy. Let's go on the flip side. There are some cons, or let's say less advantages. So when you're renting, and if your rent is $1,500 a month, in some cases it's hard for you to save. You might say, I want to save and buy a house. I can't even tell you. Stacy can tell you. Get buyers that comes through, you ask them, how much money have you saved And they always say what?
No.
I need to save some money, buy a house. And you know what, and it takes everything in me not to laugh. I'm like, when you're buying something, you need money. But my rent is $1,500, how am I ever gonna save? That's really the truth of the matter, it's very difficult to save. And just to give you guys a heads up, I'm gonna need you to pull up the calculators. We're gonna do a little math. Okay, so it's gonna be fun, but just want you to see, sometimes I'm a visual person, I don't know if you're a visual person, I have to see. So we're gonna do a little math, and so you can better understand something as we go along. Now, another kind would be restrictions. Landlord says you can't bring your cat, can't bring your dog, can't bring your bird, can't bring your alligator, you know, because it has somebody who had alligator. I know, anyway, just the conversation. Can't have people stay at your house more than 2 weeks. After they stay in your house for 2 weeks, they consider occupants, they need to be on your lease. Whereas, so those are the disadvantages of renting. Renting doesn't give you the full availabilities for some things at home. So let's look at some pros and cons of buying. So, one of the pros is you control your space. You want to tear out a wall? Let's tear out a wall. You want to build a wall? Let's build anything that you want, you can do. You have control of your space when you buy a house. Paint your house black, go ahead. Okay, check over this little thing. You could do that too. So another advantage is it improves your credit score. Now, Kevin will tell you, buy a house, for some reason the credit goes up. How you tell us, Kevin, how, on the average, how many points?
60 to 70.
So 60
On
to 70
average.
points on the average just from buying a house. Wow. So that's another advantage of buying a house. And the other advantage is generational wealth. If you have children, you have something you can leave to your children. I can't even tell you how many people are homeless because families have failed properties in family because they didn't have anything, in some cases, they didn't have a house to leave to the children. And in some cases, weren't responsible to keep the house. All right, let's look at the disadvantages. This side here, which is the opposite. Some of the disadvantages of buying a house is just can't get up and go. I want to go to Africa and help children. I got a house here. Oh my gosh, gotta stay here. Wait till this house sells 30, 60 days, 90 days, depending on the neighborhood. Whereas if you was renting, your lease is over, see you. All right, so that's one. So another disadvantage maybe is that your payment is being monitored. You might say, what? What are you talking about, Ed? Okay, so when you buy a house, on your credit report, engage me for a minute, it's about credit. When you make your payments on your house, that's put on your credit report. When you don't make your payments on your house, is that reported too? Yes. When you rent your house, that's not being put on your credit report. Even when you don't pay rent, it's not put in your credit report. Not put in your credit report until we have what we discussed earlier, the judgment. So some people like to be below the radar as this person. They don't like to be monitored. Why do y'all worry about whether I'm paying my mortgage or not? Well, that's some people. And our last one of the cons to some people is you gotta plan on what to do with this house in the event of an untimely demise. What's going on with this house? I think you guys start thinking things through. And some people don't like to think things through, especially when it comes to their own mortality. They don't want to think about what they can't even think about the idea that they're no longer. So there's a lot of houses in the city of Philadelphia that's just sitting there because no one knows who owns it. Family never left anybody, and the city just has all these houses. It's a sad situation, but so when you're renting, you don't have to worry about who gets it. Leave, go. But when you own something, you just want to think about how you're going to pass it on to the next generation. So let's go and get a little bit more detail as we go into our next slide. These are some good pieces. Mother, she had taken care, actually had my grandparents bought the house. So this is my back. And we lived at the time in a 2-bedroom apartment. And then one day she came in the house and she says, I got the keys. Looked at her. Keys. These 5 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Perfect. We all get up, walk, because we didn't have buses. We had buses, but we had a car. We go to the house, all of us, we all going into the house. This side of the house, there's no house, and that side of the house, is no houses, vacant houses all on the whole block. The house, we're like, oh. My mom so proud. She spent $12,000. She bought herself a house. That pride actually stays out my mind a lot to this day. Because as a single family, 3 children, being able to buy something that's called a home. That's big. So perhaps for you, buying a house might be just buys appreciation. No, it's not. Appreciation. You were to take $10,000 and put it in the bank. 30 days go by. Guess how much interest you get? Read out. Get that,
No.
right? I always tell you, buy a house. Buy a house. Equity loans. You got some things you want to do, you have a trip you want to take, you have a family member who has some medical situations that you can help out or want to help out with. You can't do that, right? On property. You can take out loans. Mortgage interest, real estate tax deductions, all these types of things are benefits of home ownership. So perhaps maybe you're making so much money on your job and you're saying, IRS is killing me. It's taking off. Oh, so you give you some of it back. Stop taking much of their money. Use it as a tax shelter for you. There's a lot of advantages of this. And then I'm going to talk about some reasons perhaps you might want to. Our next, thank you. All right. Number 1, no maintenance costs. People say, you buy a house, I got to fix everything. I got to fix. Yeah. Right. Don't worry, my roof is leaking. Can you come and fix this? Can you come and fix that? And let me ask somebody, really, do they ever come fix?
No.
I saw that. It does depend on the landlord. Yes, landlords, there's good landlords out there. So those good landlords out there, we kudos to them. Also, some people like to rent because they want the amenities. Ooh, this place has a swimming pool, this place has a gym, this place has views I'm looking for. You know, so a lot of these more upscale and luxury provide resources that, you know, you wouldn't get if you just bought a house. Especially condo. Some people just like everything on one floor. I don't wanna have to put the grass, I don't want to get the snow. I just wanna be able, I don't even wanna live alone. I just like the idea that I know I'm not just building by myself. Things just, those are the, that's a good thing. I don't have to pay no real estate taxes. I don't have to pay. Everybody thinks about what they don't have to pay when they rent. They also like the flexibility. I'll go to Pennsylvania, go to school, then I'm done there, I go down to Virginia, do my internship, when I'm done there, I go. So again, these are some advantages of renting. And one of the last ones, people might want to rent, as discussed earlier, fixed. Your rent is $1,000 a month for 12 months. No questions asked. Don't, whereas with buying, your taxes or your insurance will go up, so your mortgage may have to change. So they offer. I still want to take out your calculators. Let's look at our next slide. All right, we got some scenarios. Hypothetical. Let's do this. Let's pick a house. So I like to give you a house. All right, this is our house. Got your calculators? All right, right. We're renting this house. Yeah, we're on the rent side. Let's say $1,500. All right, so pull out the calculators, everybody. $1,500 times 12. So how much?
$13,000.
$1,500 times 12. $1,500 a month, 12 months a year.
80.
How much we have a year?
18,000.
Yes, $18,000. Okay. Look at that. All right. So let's take that. That's it's 35 years old, single. Yes, 3 children. Yes. She pays rent. She pays $2,000 a year. Let me ask you, you think Sherry should buy? Or should she rent? Can't be wrong either way. I just want to know what your thoughts are based on what you said. Do you want to have any comments? I think you should buy them.
I'll say rent.
You think she should rent and why?
She has no seat.
She has no savings. Okay. So got one that says rent. How about you?
So. Okay. Is she receiving help?
Right, we have a lot of questions.
Yeah,
And the question is being asked if she's receiving any help. That's a very good question. She might have family who has the money.
Or, when she's running, like, is she doing some type of
That she in a program.
help? What is her income?
But what do you think she should do? Everybody, what do you think? So you think she should buy?
Should definitely buy.
And if you should buy? You could buy. Still think she should rent? Still stay in rent? And you know what? Either of
First
them.
time home buyer.
Yeah, either of them could be right. However, I recommend. Yeah. She died a day of tomorrow. Who gets her kids? Where were her kids going? But if she had a house, whoever gets her kids gets that house. Her kids will always have something if she doesn't. So sometimes the person may not have a certain, but again, $18,000 is a lot of money to spend not to own anything either. So I think Sherry should consider buying a house. Okay. Scenario B. We have a 60-year-old woman, no children. She wants to move to Australia. Down under. Rent? Or should she buy? Or why do you say? Yes, there is. You think she should rent? If she wants to move. Okay, that's a good thought process. Let me ask you something, is it possible at 60 she has a house? Is it possible? And if she has a house, what should she do? Give income from, so she can rent a house in Australia.
I'm a,
Go
I'm gonna
ahead.
push back. I think she should sell it.
Think you-
Australia's kind of far to be a absentee landlord.
That's true. That's true.
Canada,
Again, a,
A property
property
manager.
manager, sure,
Do that.
still.
There's
Straight.
situations that she can really think about, right? So if she doesn't have a house, maybe she should just rent it up. Go to Australia and find a dwelling there. That's why we say in this industry, you can't really tell someone what they can or can't do. Everyone's situation is different. And so for the viewing audience, I just have to make the statement, because it's one of the things that occurs me most. But my sister, my brother, or they didn't have this, or they didn't have this. Stop with the rhetoric, because your situation. And like I said, our situations are hypothetical situations. Not wrong or right. Okay? Let's take our third scenario, 50-year-old woman. Some say it's middle age, I think 50, 30, so. That's just my feeling. It's simple, they live together, they have children. They have adult children. Do they buy or should they rent?
Buy.
I hear Go ahead, yeah.
So I'm buying and renting to my sister.
Buying, you're gonna rent.
Yeah, she gotta pay.
oh,
Rent,
yeah.
help each other out, 50 years old.
Yep.
Her sister lives with her. And they each have adult children. They all can buy. They all can rent. Doesn't make it right or wrong. Here's where it gets a little bit. Now we're gonna take our calculator. We're gonna take that $18,000 that we just said that we're spending it on rent. And we're gonna say on an average, how long do you stay in your house? How many years?
No,
Okay. I'm just said 20,
was it 7 years?
7 years in average. Let's take 18,000, please, engage me and multiply that by 7. Give me 1,000. $126,000. Is that what everyone got? $126,000 after 7 years. What have you just done? What house? What house? Take $1,500 a month. Every month. For 7 years. And when the 7 years is over, what do you have?
That's it.
You have. You have nothing to show for it. You absolutely have nothing to show for your $126,000. She'll be here. So, when we look at this $126,000, and we look at rent in general, of these 3 scenarios that we discussed, 35-year-old, one of them can chew away at this $126,000 a lot sooner, right? They'll be the younger person that's younger. They start when they're younger. They can save themselves a lot. When you're older and you start getting into this, you're not going to spend $26,000 because you're not old. But when you're younger, you can get a head start. So, as we look at the next slide, I would just say We have to have a discussion. We have to go and talk to a real estate professional. What we done today is we looked at and discussed collection. And we talked about the importance of finding ways to use discernment, liabilities with our creditors to allow us to make certain that our credit reports reflect it it's entirely accurate. We don't want collections from our accounts that should not. Those types of things will help prevent you from getting mortgage. Talked about today, the importance of buying and renting. Either of them is wrong or right. It's all about you. So think about trying to keep money if you can. Even if you are renting, it's really nothing wrong with still owning real estate. I'm a firm believer, you can rent all day long, get yourself a condo down city and live there and rent all day long, but you can still own a piece of property that's gonna make some money for you while you're renting. There's a lot of different dynamics that's involved. So what we like to do, we have easy credit and general practice state. I like to look at our next slide to show you and invite you to our next segment, which will be 5:14, and we'll be discussing charge-offs. And we're going to discuss how to avoid foreclosures. Ooh, we don't like that. So I'd like to thank all of you again, our audience, questions, or if you'd like to talk to this personally, we have our information. Speak.
All right. That's me.
Yeah. My message.
Thank